Hi everyone, I'm Chloe McCormick and welcome back to the Mentors Connect podcast. Today on the podcast we have Nick Crocker on, who is the general partner at Blackbird Ventures. And if you have not heard of Blackbird Ventures, make sure to look them up right now. They are a major investor, particularly focusing on companies founded here in Australia and New Zealand. And they've invested in the likes of Canva, Safety Culture, Culture Amp. And today I'm pretty excited to pick at the brains of Nick Crockers and ask him a lot of questions about what are entrepreneurs looking like and what is the business of tomorrow going to look like. So make sure all to tune in and watch until the end for also a great piece of advice from Nick. So I've done a bit of a stalk, I'll be honest, and I've seen you've had a history in entrepreneurship, and obviously now you're helping other entrepreneurs build their businesses. So maybe tell us a bit more about your journey to where you are today.
For sure. Again, thanks so much for having me on. It's really a pleasure to be with you, and good on you for getting this done. You've had some awesome guests along the way, so it's a privilege to be on. So I started out, I grew up in Queensland. I studied political science and law and didn't really fall passionately in love with either one. I was a music journalist. I really loved music and journalism, and so I actually started out following my passion in that area, writing music reviews for the newspaper. And that sort of snowballed into joining a startup that was focused on music. And that was where I got my first taste for entrepreneurship. It was in a music startup, but also interviewing entrepreneurs for the paper in Queensland and just realizing that there was this whole world of entrepreneurship that was just kind of where I felt like I should have been my whole life. So from there, I went on a pretty quick journey where we launched a music website that ended up getting bought by Twitter. And I launched a digital agency, which we got to work with lots of record labels and MySpace. You probably don't remember MySpace.
I've never seen it though.
Yeah, okay. Well, it was a big thing for a little while. So it was a really, really fun experience. Then I started a healthcare company called Sessions. Sessions we sold to MyFitnessPal, but we'd raised some money in the Sessions journey. Blackbird had invested in me, so I got to know the Blackbird team, loved the time that I'd spent with them. And so when that journey came to an end, there was just only one place I wanted to be. It was Blackbird, and I kind of just hung around long enough for them to find stuff for me to do, and now here we are.
Oh, that's so awesome. And, it's pretty cool, like full circle. They invested in your company and now here you are working with them. So, okay, I've got a few questions prepared. And the first one is, so we can all get on a even playing field of knowledge. I was hoping if you could explain what is venture capital and what does your role actually entail?
For sure. So venture capital is basically giving money to companies who can grow really, really fast. And one way to think about fast growing companies is, can they get to $100 million of revenue in the next 10 years? That's how I think about a rough benchmark for fast. And our job is to give them money really early on in their journey and to give them belief that they can build not just a small company, but a really big company. And what's cool is when you have founders like Mel and Cliff from Canva and Didier from Culture Amp and Luke from Safety Culture, who have built these companies that have gone way beyond that, it makes it much more possible for every other entrepreneur that's coming. And, for us to be there at the beginning, to have given them the money, to have seen them when it was just a couple of people, it's just awesome to be on that journey and to have seen it played out. And now we hope that it plays out lots more times. So venture capital is giving money to companies in exchange for owning a small piece of the company. And the particular kind of company that venture capital focus on is really high growth companies. And often that's around new technology and software. And that's where we spend our lives. And so the job of a VC is to meet with great entrepreneurs and find the ones that you want to back and work with for the next 10 years.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. And I wanted to ask, you've kind of given us a precursor, venture capital, it's probably pretty tech heavy, looking at software, because that's how you can grow a lot. But is there like a certain industry which you and Blackbird are keeping an eye on for growth, in the next 10, 20 years?
Every industry. And what happens is actually entrepreneurs show us the future before we predict it. What will happen usually is 2 or 3 founders will come and tell us about what they're working on, and it'll be all in a new space. And that'll usually be a sign that space is ready to be something that's worthy of investment. So we've done a lot of investing in software, what's called software as a service. So that's Canva, Safety Culture, Culture Amp are great examples of those. We've done a lot of investing in frontier technologies, so rockets, lasers, 3D printers. We're starting to do a lot more around healthcare, companies like Eucalyptus. We're dipping our toe in Web3 at the moment, dipping our toe in engineering, biology, but we're looking everywhere for new ideas and just looking for founders who are doing their life's work in these places.
No, that sounds awesome. And okay, I've got a kind of a different question then. What's like the coolest concept you've seen, you know, when you've been interviewing these entrepreneurs that you've like, it's stuck with you and you're like, wow, that's really clever.
Yeah, so we didn't end up doing the investment. We probably met the founder just a little bit late, but there's a founder based in Melbourne. He's in New York now, but he's Melbourne originally. And I'm going to get the words wrong here, but basically he built an implant that enables people to use their impulses in their brain to operate sort of external. So someone who's lost all their kind of bodily function can still use their brain to touch buttons and move around the world.
Yeah.
And he literally just showed me how it would go up into the brain and just sit there and send pulses out into the brain. His name's Tom Oxley, and the company's called Synchron, Synchron. So if any of your listeners want to check it out, it's one of the most extraordinary technologies that you will ever see. And I still remember him coming into the office, doing the demo, and my mind just exploding as he showed us videos of this actually working, actually implanted into the human brain and then actually working. So I think Synchron is still to this day the best demo I've ever seen. I wish I'd met him a little bit earlier in the journey.
No, that sounds awesome though. Wow, that is like life-changing stuff too, isn't it?
Totally life-changing. It's so cool that it's coming out of, it's an Australian founder doing it.
No, so awesome. So now, like, let's talk a bit about companies you've been able to invest in, you know, maybe a few of your favorites at the moment. What stood out about them? Share with us.
Yeah, so no favorites, they're all equally favorite. So Eucalyptus is one that I'm really proud of. It's a healthcare company, it's built a range of brands, everything from Pilot for men to Kin for women, software for skin, and a whole lot more. So I really love Eucalyptus and have loved they've had hundreds of thousands of people be able to access healthcare who probably wouldn't have otherwise. And just really proud of just watching that team, just constantly in awe of that team. I think Culture Amp is a really beautiful company. Culture Amp is software that helps companies basically to build better cultures. And it's got 6,000 customers all over the world now, some of the biggest companies in the world. And so knowing that, again, Australian founders can change the culture of the best companies around the world is pretty awesome. And then, Dovetail's another one, I think that's, going to be a really special company. And they help companies basically better understand their users and better access all the information about their users, interviews and tweets and all the information they have about their users, make it more accessible for everyone internally. So I really love the Dovetail journey.
No, those all sound very cool. And I think there's kind of a pattern I'm seeing quite centric on, having an impact, even though it's also through technology.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a job you have to do for a really long time. Company building doesn't happen in a year or 2 years or 5 years. It's a decade long, or maybe 2 decade or ideally you build companies that last for centuries. And so you really have to believe in what they're doing to spend all that time with them and be patient enough while they grow and kind of make all the twists and turns on their journey. So I think it'd be a hard job to do if you didn't believe in the founders you were backing and what the products they were putting into the world.
No, that makes sense. So before we finish up, this is my last question before we start finishing up. I was hoping, undeniably the markets have been a bit low lately. So how do you and the venture capital world see the future looking like? Do you think this will strengthen companies and entrepreneurs in the long run?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll strengthen everyone, but I think markets go up and markets go down, and ideally, the best companies are really a little immune to either. And so obviously every company's had to react, just like they reacted when markets were up last year. The best founders react in the right way. The best companies will succeed. I think for any company that has to do layoffs or anything like that, it's obviously a really, kind of gut-wrenching process to go through for founders. So it's not all roses. But I feel very, very optimistic. And share price of big companies in public markets is one thing. What we spend more time looking at is, has this company made a lot of progress in the last 3 months? And that's where I really get my confidence in our portfolio and in the founders I work with, because regardless of share price, the progress they're making is just wonderful. And if you compound lots of progress over 10 years, that's a really powerful thing, and you'll get a long way. So it's actually, there's been a lot of noise and a lot of angst, but I think we've just been more focused on each company, making sure they can survive the downturn and making sure they keep making progress. And I feel like for the most part they are. So I'm as excited as I've ever been.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So before we finish up, Nick, I was hoping if you could share a piece of advice for the viewers. Perhaps they want to be an entrepreneur or a leader or get involved in these super cool industries and startups. Share anything you want.
For sure. Well, I think some industries you need to get permission to access, but in the world of startups, actually, it's quite easy to access it. So there are programs that you can go through, like the StartMate Fellowship or our Giants program, which make it very easy and accessible. But the best thing is, every day there are meetups, conferences, drinks, and you can go to drinks around healthcare or Web3 or all kinds of things. And so pretty much you just get started and you just find companies that you love and want to help. And that's always been my journey. And you'll find opportunities to join them as an employee. Maybe you make a small investment, maybe you find a way to help them, maybe you make introductions. But I don't think, if this is something you want to do, I don't think you need to wait to be asked or to be given permission. You can just dive straight in, and there's just it's just an easy world to access relative to some others. And so I would just encourage anyone who's interested to dive straight in with both feet.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Nick, for that great piece of advice and for talking with me today. It's been so great to get all your insights, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me.